are these younger wide receivers going to be? I don't think it'll be first-round receivers because you get a little more money on that rookie contract to know that you can really maximize the money on the next deal. But if you're a guy that doesn't have that first-round contract, but you're performing like a first-round wide receiver, after 1 year, if you're offered $57 or $52 million, whatever it is, guaranteed,
and taking
a max up to $75, yeah. I mean, and listen, there's also the fact that, like, what if Nico Collins does regress a little bit? What if Stephon Diggs takes away some of his targets? What if the offense doesn't look the same? I mean, they're playing a first-place schedule in Houston this year. What if what if he gets hurt? I mean, really, that's the big thing you think about. Getting it that much guaranteed money, that's life-changing money no matter what. So I'm all for players going and maximizing their income.
No, you have to, because you're right. Like, we've seen a lot of guys over the course of NFL history, specifically at the wide receiver position, have a really strong year that earns them money, and then life is a little bit different when everybody else knows you're good.
Right.
Because the game plans start to be centered more around you than they were the prior year. So we see that's not out of the realm of possibility, but 72.75 for him that's a big money deal. And I think we're going to see, like, if we're seeing Jalen Waddle do 3 years, 84, and we're seeing Nico Collins do 3 years, 72. A couple of years ago when A.J. Brown was traded and then signed in Philadelphia, that was just a 40-year, $100 million deal. My guess is that we're going to see Justin Jefferson, because he's going to be the highest. I mean, I don't know who's going to get paid first, him or Jamar Chase, but Justin Jefferson's going to be the higher of the two, more likely than not, and you might see him in the neighborhood of 3 years, $100 million.
There's now 5 teams in the NFL that are paying 2 wide receivers at least $20 million a season. The Dolphins with Waddle and Hill, the Eagles with Brown and Devontae Smith, now the Texans, obviously, Stephon Diggs inheriting that contract and the Nico Collins deal they just signed. The Bears now with Moore and Allen, and then Tampa, Evans and Goodwin. So it's like, you look around and, like, you need wide receivers in the NFL, but you got to make sure that your ducks are in a row with everything else, or those guys are overpaid decoys. And that's what I've always said about wide receivers. Paying wide receivers, I'm fine with, but that should be a luxury, not a necessity for a team. You've got to have an offensive line in place. It's the assembly line of success for offenses, right? Offensive line's got to be able to protect at least a reasonable amount quarterback. Quarterback's then got to be able to have the time to throw the football and throw it accurately and get it to his receivers. And then those receivers have to be able to catch the football. It may sound very basic, but the reality of it is, you can pay all the money in the world to Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, but if Tua's getting sacked the whole time, which he's getting the ball out of his hands, so that's not even a great example, but you can throw any quarterback there. You're not getting the ball out of your hands. You're not accurately throwing it to these receivers, or at least giving them an opportunity to catch it. You're paying these guys a lot of money, and then they're getting 3 catches for 55 yards in a game, and you're looking around going, what are we paying this guy for?
So you just named 5 teams.
Yes.
Miami,
Philly, Houston, Chicago, and
Tampa. How many of those teams do you trust? How many of those teams do you trust to win a playoff game singular?
Win a playoff game this season.
A playoff game this season.
I trust the Eagles. The Texans have a wide range for me, but I do actually still trust the Texans. I think what concerns me is a first-place schedule, maybe some level of regression, but they also did have a good offseason, and they've got a lot of talent on that roster. So that's a concern. I'll put an asterisk next to it. Chicago, I don't think they're ready yet. Miami, they struggled beating teams over 500 last season.
Yeah, I haven't seen them win a playoff game with Tua. I love Tua, but I haven't seen
I don't really trust Tampa either.
And even trusting Philly is a little ballsy based on how their season ended last year. Now,
I think Philly's going to be better though.
Their coaching staff is better.
Yes,
it's significantly better.
Yeah, I think that makes a huge difference. What do you think the general matchups could look like for Boston, at least early in the series, to try and stop Kyrie and Luka?
Yeah, I think that the first assignment is really going to be the most important. That's Jaylen Brown. I think he's going to primarily be guarding Luka Doncic.
Yeah.
And that's going to be an opportunity for him to also get his stock up. He may not be the leading scorer or, have all the statistics necessarily to be a finals MVP. But if he really locks in on the defensive end, I think that could probably sway voters if this series does go in Boston's direction. Right now, he's, I believe, plus 600 to win MVP right now. I think that's a really good bet. If you're comparing that to, Jason Tatum, who's the odds-on favorite right now, because, this whole narrative around it's Jason Tatum's time, this is him going to be owning the moment. I think we saw in the Eastern Conference Finals, this is actually a lot closer of a race between the two Jays than the books may make it out to be. But on the other side, who's going to guard Kyrie? it's going to be a combination between Drew Holiday and Derek White, and I think they're going to take turns doing that. That's going to be a really tough matchup for Kyrie, sending those different looks there. But ultimately, we're talking about one of the best players on the planet, so I think that the Dallas Mavericks and Jason Kidd will figure it out. Maybe we'll see some more Jaden Hardy minutes, but I think Josh Green's also going to be an important piece for them in this series.
What's your level of trust in Joe Mazzulla?
It's
I was
growing.
about to laugh too when he asked that. Yeah,
it's growing, but like I don't know that we can say that. Are we absolving him of the late game not throwing timeouts and lack of foul calls and just up to really settle this team and lock them in when they need it most? I don't know that I'm completely sold, but I think that they certainly have the talent, especially when you insert Kristaps Porzingis back into this equation to win the championship. And I think that's really all we're asking for here is like, Joe, you don't mess this up. Do what's gotten you to this point, and just close out the games. And I think that they'll win the series. But it's the Boston Celtics here, man. We know what to expect. There's going to be some operating errors here.
what does it say about the Rangers, given the circumstances where they can come out and essentially pull off that upset when they're dogs?
Well, I think they just kind of. I don't want to sound so cliche. You kind of set me up for this. They kind of have that dog in them. I mean, look at what
Cliché's okay sometimes. Sometimes it fits perfectly,
It came right to my head. I didn't want to sound cheesy, but you know what? Look, in the game that they ended up advancing to the conference finals, Chris Kreider gets the hat trick, right? And in a game that they might not win, according to the Corsi numbers, according to the expected goal numbers, Shesterkin makes 43 saves and they win the game. That's really what it's going to take. It's going to take the heroics. It feels like it's almost a legacy year for this New York Rangers team. Overall, I think one thing, guys, that people forget about this Florida Panthers team, last year when they got to this point of the conference finals, and then, of course, when they advanced to play Vegas in the Stanley Cup finals, they were so injured. Like, they beat the Boston Bruins after the Bruins broke that record for the most wins in a single season. But ever since, like, after that series, they were so injured. They didn't even have a full roster. So I feel like people are not giving the Panthers enough credit, and they're more so discrediting the New York Rangers. You know what I mean?
Are we past the point, because I'm looking right now at these Stanley Cup odds, and Florida's plus 130. Are we past the point where we should be hammering money on them? Is it too late to jump on them?
I think that, well, with what you're getting right now, what's crazy is people could have set themselves up for the most perfect middle in the world because the Panthers were down 2-1. You could have taken the Panthers series and then now take the Rangers, but I'm seeing as high as, plus 300, plus 4. I mean, when you look at some of these series prices right now, that's what I would do if you're looking to bet on the New York Rangers. But I'll take it a step further. How about the Conn Smythe? I think there's only one team remaining in the NHL that if they win the Stanley Cup, their goaltender will not win the Conn Smythe. I think you guys know which team that is, and I hate to be that guy towards Stuart Skinner. I haven't been hard on him like everybody else, but that's the only team. I think Shesterkin, I think Bobrovsky could win it, and I think Ottinger could win it. And to me, that's the key, is taking a look at that value right now. I mean, you take a look at the screen right now, Shesterkin, the odds you're getting for him, I think, is really good because based on the fact that the Rangers do come back, it's going to be because of him and because of nobody else.